probably tried to build a habit and failed miserably. Maybe it was eating healthier, waking up early, or finally starting that side hustle. And I'm willing to bet that for the first few days, maybe even the first couple weeks, you were crushing it. You had that motivation, that fire. But then life happened. You missed a day. Then another. And before you knew it, you were right back where you started, wondering what's wrong with you. Except the fact that nothing is wrong with you.
Yeah, nothing. You see it? Because you know there is nothing on the screen, so never mind.
So where exactly are you going wrong? Your willpower is fine. Your discipline is fine. The problem is you've been fighting a battle you were never supposed to win. Because every single time you try to force yourself to do something that doesn't match who you think you are, your brain is working against you.
A smoker can tell you every reason why smoking is killing them. They know they want to quit, but their brain says, yeah, but you're a smoker. This is what we do. A person who sees themselves as not a morning person can set 15 alarms and their brain will find a way to hit snooze on every single one. Because you can't out-discipline your identity. Your identity will win every single time. But what if you could flip that? What if instead of your identity working against you, it was pulling you toward the person you want to become? What if your brain was made to want the gym, to want to write, to want to wake up early? Because that's just who you are now.
So why everything you've tried before hasn't worked yet? Well, most of us build habits the exact same way. We set a goal, we get excited about it. We say things like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to run a marathon, or I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. These are what we call outcome-based goals. You're focused on the end result. And on the surface, that sounds perfectly logical, right? You should know what you want before you go after it. But when you set an outcome-based goal, you're essentially making a deal with your future self. You're saying, future me will have the discipline to do this. Future me will have the willpower to push through when it's hard. And maybe for the first week, you do. You're riding that wave of motivation. You meal prep on Sunday, you hit the gym Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're thinking this time is different. I've got this.
But then Thursday rolls around. You're tired. Work was brutal. Your friend texts you about grabbing dinner, and suddenly that internal conversation starts. Should I go to the gym, or should I skip just this once? I mean, I've been good all week. I deserve a break, right? And you know what happens next. You skip. And it's fine. One day isn't a big deal. Except now Friday comes, and it's a little easier to skip again. Then the weekend hits, and by Monday, you're back to square one. Sound familiar? Research from the University of Scranton found that only 8% of people actually achieve their New Year's resolutions. 8%. That means 92 out of every 100 people who set a goal with genuine intention to change fail. See, when you rely on outcome-based goals, you're essentially white-knuckling your way through behavior change. You're trying to force yourself to act differently while your brain is still clinging to your old identity. And your brain? It doesn't like that, not one bit. For example, right now, you have a story about who you are. Maybe you think of yourself as not a morning person, or someone who's not really into fitness, or not creative. These aren't just random thoughts, they're your identity. And your brain is hardwired to keep your behavior consistent with that identity. So when you try to wake up at 5 a.m., but your identity says, just sleep, dog, you aren't a morning person, your brain experiences what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's that uncomfortable feeling when your actions don't match your beliefs about yourself, and your brain will do everything in its power to resolve that dissonance. It's way easier for your brain to change your behavior back to match your identity than it is to change your identity to match your behavior. That's why you hit snooze. That's why you skip the gym. That's why you order takeout instead of cooking the healthy meal you planned. Your brain is literally pulling you back to who it thinks you are. So, what is the solution? Well, introducing identity-based habits. And how does this work? It's pretty simple. Instead of setting a goal to read 30 books a year, say I am a reader and read one page every day. Instead of aiming to lose weight, say I am the one who never misses a workout. Instead of aiming to save a specific amount, say I am financially responsible. So, wait a minute. Hello.
I have a doubt. Doesn't that sound like fake it till you make it? I mean, I think I'm just lying to myself.
That's a very good question.
And now, this isn't some positive thinking nonsense. This isn't about standing in front of a mirror telling yourself things that you don't believe. This is neuroscience. This is psychology. And it's one of the most powerful behavioral tools you have access to. How? When you make an identity-based statement, you say I am instead of I want, you're doing something fundamentally different in your brain. You're not setting a goal anymore. You're making a declaration about who you are. And your brain treats those two things very, very differently. Leon Festinger, a psychologist back in the 1950s, developed a principle called cognitive consistency theory, which says human beings have a deep psychological need to keep their beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors aligned with each other. When there's a mismatch, when what you do doesn't line up with who you think you are, it creates what we talked about earlier. Cognitive dissonance.
Think about someone you know who's a vegetarian. Someone whose identity is I am a vegetarian. Now, imagine you're at a barbecue with them. There's burgers, hot dogs, ribs, all the meat you can imagine. And someone offers them a burger. What happens? They don't think, oh man, that looks good. Should I? Shouldn't I? Maybe just this once? No, the answer is instant and automatic. No thanks. I don't eat meat. There's zero decision fatigue because the decision is already made at the identity level. Their brain doesn't even categorize meat as food for them anymore. That's the power of identity-based habits. Now, compare that to someone who's trying to cut back on meat. You offer them a burger and watch what happens in their head. Well, I have been good this week and it does smell amazing. Maybe just a small one. I'll do better tomorrow. See the difference? One person's identity makes the decision automatic. The other person has to fight themselves every single time.
All right, before I give you the exact framework, understand this. Your brain has two key players here. First, you've got your prefrontal cortex. That's the front part of your brain, right behind your forehead. This is your thinking brain, your conscious, decision-making, I'm going to choose to do this brain. This is where your identity lives. When you think, I am a runner, or I am a healthy person, that thought is happening in your prefrontal cortex. Then you've got the basal ganglia. This is a cluster of structures deep in the center of your brain, and this is where your habits live. This is your autopilot brain. It's the part that runs all your automatic behaviors. Brushing your teeth, driving home without thinking about the route, reaching for your phone the second you're bored. The basal ganglia doesn't care about your goals or your intentions. It just runs based on what you've done before.
These two parts of your brain are in constant communication. If your prefrontal cortex is the architect, designing the blueprint of who you want to be, your basal ganglia is the construction crew, actually building the structure through repeated action. When you say, I am a runner, your prefrontal cortex makes that claim, but your basal ganglia is like, okay, buddy, prove it. And you prove it through repetition. Every time you run, even if it's just 10 minutes, you're sending a signal. Hey, this is who we are now. Every time you lace up your shoes and go for a run, even if it's just a 10-minute jog around the block, you're sending a signal from your prefrontal cortex to your basal ganglia. You're essentially saying, hey, this is who we are now. This is what we do. And at first, your basal ganglia is skeptical. It's like, okay, sure, we did that once. Let's see if you're serious. But when you do it again the next day and the day after that, and again, and again, and again, something amazing starts to happen. Your brain begins to build new neural pathways. And there's this phrase neuroscientists love: neurons that fire together, wire together.
Each time you repeat the behavior, the neural pathway gets stronger.
It's like walking through a forest. The first time you walk a certain route, you're pushing through brush, stepping over fallen branches. It takes effort.
But walk that same path every day, and eventually you've got a clear trail.
The brush gets cleared. The path becomes
obvious, and you can walk it without even thinking about it. That's what's happening in your brain. The more you repeat a behavior that aligns with your identity, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. And eventually, it gets so strong that it becomes automatic. It moves from your prefrontal cortex, where it requires conscious effort, to your basal ganglia, where it just runs on autopilot. This process is called neuroplasticity.
All right, cool. Now that you know what's happening upstairs, we will move to the last segment, or the exact 4-step framework to make this work.
Step 1, decide who you want to become. Okay, so the first step is to get crystal clear on your identity. And I don't mean picking a goal. I mean choosing who you want to be as a person. Here's how to do this. Instead of asking yourself, what do I want to achieve? Ask yourself, what type of person could get the outcome I want? Maybe you want to lose 30 pounds. That's an outcome. So ask yourself, what type of person has the body I want? Well, that's probably someone who values their health, someone who makes conscious choices about what they put in their body, someone who moves regularly. So your identity isn't, I want to lose weight. I am someone who takes care of my body. Maybe you want to start a business. What type of person builds a successful business? That's an entrepreneur, a problem solver, someone who takes action even when they're uncertain. So your identity becomes I am an entrepreneur. See the shift? You're working backward from the outcome to the identity.
But remember one thing, your identity should not feel like a fantasy. If you haven't jogged in 10 years, jumping straight to I am Usain Bolt might create too much cognitive dissonance. Your brain will reject it. Instead, start with I am someone who walks regularly. You can always upgrade your identity later as your neurons grow.
So right now, I want you to think about one area of your life you want to change. Just one. Don't try to overhaul your entire life at once. Pick one identity and then write it down right now. Get out your phone, open your notes app, or on a sheet of paper, whatever suits you, and complete this sentence. I am.
Step 2, prove it. This is where most people screw it up. You've declared who you are, but your brain doesn't just believe you because you said so. Your brain needs proof. It needs evidence. And that evidence comes from your actions. But the actions don't need to be big. In fact, they shouldn't be big. They should be so small that you can't say no. When you declare, I am a writer, and then immediately try to write for 2 hours a day, you're setting yourself up to fail because 2 hours is intimidating. 2 hours requires time you might not have. 2 hours leaves room for excuses. And the second you skip a day, your brain goes, see, I knew we weren't really a writer. But what if instead of 2 hours, you committed to writing 5 sentences? Just 5. When you sit down and write that one sentence, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. That's your reward chemical. Your brain doesn't care that it was only 5 sentences. It just registers task done. Identity confirmed. You said you were a writer. You wrote. The box checks out.
And that dopamine hit, it creates a positive association between the identity and the action. Your brain starts to crave that feeling of completion, feeling of consistency even more. Plus, most days, you won't stop at 5 sentences because starting is the hardest part, and you just overcame it by writing that one sentence. So you write another sentence, then another, and before you know it, you've written for 20 minutes. BJ Fogg, the Stanford researcher, built his entire tiny habits method around this principle. He studied thousands of people and found that the people who succeeded weren't the ones who went big. They were the ones who went tiny and stayed consistent. Philip O'Lally at University College London found out that it takes about 66 days for a habit to become automatic. They were doing simple, repeatable actions, and they were doing them every single day. One guy in the study made his habit do 1 push-up after morning coffee. Just 1. 3 months later, he was doing 50 push-ups every morning. So what I want you to do, take the identity you wrote down in step 1 and ask yourself, what's the smallest possible action I can take today that would prove this identity? It can be anything. Just keep it small.
Step 3. Use identity language consciously. This one's simple but incredibly powerful. You need to change the way you talk to yourself and others about your behavior because the language you use shapes your identity more than you realize. Every time you say something about yourself, your brain listens and it starts to believe it. Let's say you're trying to eat healthier and someone brings in donuts. He offers you one. Now, you've got 2 ways you could respond. Option 1, I can't eat that. I'm trying to eat healthy. Option 2, I don't eat that. I'm not really a sweets person. Do they sound similar? They don't. Not even close.
Patrick and Hagvet ran a study where they had people use either I can't or I don't when refusing temptations. The people who said I don't, they were way more successful at sticking to their goals. When you say I can't, you're implying restriction. You're saying I want this, but I'm not allowed to have it. It's a rule you're forcing on yourself. And rules, we want to break them. But when you say I don't, you're making a statement about your identity. You're saying this isn't who I am. It's not a rule, it's a fact about yourself. And your brain treats those very differently. If someone offers you something you're allergic to, you don't say, I can't eat that. You say, I don't eat that. I'm allergic. There's no internal conflict there. There's no temptation. It's just a fact. That's what identity language does. It removes the internal negotiation. So be intentional with your words. Talk about yourself like you're already the person you're becoming, because the more you say it, the more your brain makes it true.
Step 4. Track identity wins, not just behavior. This is the final step. This is where you create the feedback loop that makes everything stick. You need to track your progress, but not the way you've probably tracked things before. Most people, when they track habits, they track the behavior. Did I go to the gym today? Check. Did I write today? Check. And that's fine. It's better than nothing. Yeah, nothing. You see what I mean? Because there is nothing on the screen. Fine. But it's missing the deeper layer. What you want to track is your identity. You want to track the evidence that you're becoming the person you say you are. Instead of just tracking went to the gym, you track days I acted like a healthy person. And that category is way bigger than just the gym. Maybe you didn't make it to the gym today, but you took the stairs instead of the elevator. You chose the salad over the burger. You went to bed on time so your body could recover. You stretched for 5 minutes in the morning. All of those are votes for I am a healthy person. And when you track them that way, you realize you're winning way more than you thought.
So, how to do this practically? Get a calendar. It can be a physical one or a digital one, doesn't matter. At the end of each day, ask yourself one simple question. Did I act like the person I want to become today? If the answer is yes, mark an X on that day. If the answer is no, leave it blank. Your goal is simple. Don't break the chain. This is the Jerry Seinfeld method. He used to track his writing this way. Every day he wrote, he put an X on the calendar, and he said his only job was to not break the chain. If you break the chain, and you will at some point because you're human, you don't restart from zero. You don't throw away the calendar. You just recognize it as one vote against your identity, one blank day, and you make sure tomorrow is an X.
So now you've got the framework, you understand the neuroscience, you know exactly this works, but none of that matters if you don't actually do something. Now stop scrolling and get your shit together. And 2, you're going to inspire someone else. Someone scrolling through these comments is going to see your identity statement and think, wait, I want that too. Plus, I will be reading those comments. Start today, right now. Write down your identity, take your tiny action, mark your calendar, and comment below. And then tomorrow, do it again. I'll see you soon.